Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today I'm going to review my July book club pick, which I chose us to read, Bedknobs and Broomsticks by Mary Norton. So I'm going to review it myself, tell you what the book's about, and then I'm going to read out the reviews that you guys sent in to me, and then I'm going to review as well the film. Walt Disney turned this book into a film, and I'm going to give my good old opinions on that. So first up, this book is actually two books in one. So book one was published in 1945, book two in 1947, and then later those two books were put together to make Bedknobs and Broomsticks. This is about a group of children who there's three siblings, and they have to go and live with their cold aunt for the summer, and they're not really getting along with their aunt very well, and then they befriend this other woman. This other woman's very mysterious and she lives by herself, and they realise that this woman is a witch, and they kind of blackmail her. Like, it's very sinister. It's very like classic children's literature. So they find out she's a witch and they kind of help her because she's fallen off her broomstick. They go back to her house and then they're all like, you wouldn't want anyone to know you're a witch, would you? And she's like, no, maybe I'll have to put a spell on you so you don't tell anyone. And they're like, maybe you could give us something magic to keep us quiet. Like, it's very manipulative with like her and the children. So she says, okay, give me something, give me a piece of jewellery, give me something, I'll make it magic for you. And one of the boys has a bed knob. So on like beds, you have these bed knobs that you screw in. For some reason, he's unscrewed it off his bed that morning and he has it in his pocket. So he gives it to her and she says, okay, I'm gonna make this magic. And she makes it magic, and she says, whenever you screw this into your bed, the youngest boy, he can make a wish for where he wants to go, and that bed will transport him. It can be the future, it can be the past, it can be anywhere in the world. That bed will transport whoever's on it to that place, and then you just get back on your bed and you say, I want to go home, and you can go home. She is not a full-time witch, however, this woman, and I loved that element of it. So she is a witch in training. She's like, this is just like a side hobby. You know, I wanted a hobby and I thought witchcraft. And I love that element. I was just like, I'm not the best at it, you know, you have been warned. So I loved the children going to her and then telling her about their adventures. Their adventures go wrong in certain ways, and then she decides she's going to go on an adventure with them. And then the second book starts, and the second book is the children, their aunt sends them back home and says, no, you're being too much of a fuss for me. And years later, the witch puts in an advertisement to say, if some children want to stay with me for the summer, they can. And the children recognise that it's the witch, and they apply to go and stay with her, and they get to stay with her. And then they go on, obviously, magical adventures on the bed. But when they go back to stay with her, she's given up witchcraft. She's like, you know what, I wasn't very good at it. It's not for me, it's not my kind of thing. And the children have to kind of persuade her back into witchcraft a little bit, but it's just a side hobby. And then they go into the past, and it goes back into history and the Great Fire of London, and they take someone from the past and put them back in the future. It's bloody mad, guys. It's so mad. From start to finish, you're like, what? And then it gets really sinister, and then they're stuck on an island, and there's a witch doctor who's going to kill the witch, and then if there's cannibals on the island that are going to eat them all and kill them. There's a bit where the man from the past is going to burn to death. Like, the whole thing, it's just so mad. It's so mad. And when in like the first book, when the first book obviously ended, when they have to go home, they're like, bye, like, we might not see you ever again, bye. And it's like, Jesus, that's how that book actually ended. So sad. I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought it was so good. I loved the three children. I loved there's like two older children, a girl and a boy, and they kind of pick on the younger one a little bit because he is the only one that can make the wishes, because he was the one that screwed off the bed knob. So the witch says it's only fair that he can choose where to go, and they have to kind of like bully him into going where they want to go. I thought it was great. I thought it was fabulous. I loved it. It was so weird though. So weird, but it's so many mini adventures. Really did love this. So now I'm going to read out your reviews. I have one picture of the book to put up, which is Graham's book, and not a lot of people read along with this. A lot of people had heard of the Disney film or had not heard of it at all. They didn't know that it was a book, they didn't know anything about it. So thank you, Graham, for your picture. Graham actually read this before the readathon, but I loved his like comment that he had, so I'm going to read that out. Graham Siller reads books. Hannah has chosen this fabulous little book for July's pick. I read this back in November and absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to take part in the book club this month. It's a beautifully written book, or 2 books in one if you're going to get technical. It bears some but not many similarities with the 1971 Walt Disney film starring Angela Lansbury. There's a whole storyline about the 16th century witchcraft, necromancy, witch hunts and time travels. It gets really rather dark at some points of the story. Disney can get a tad dark at times, but I think possibly it may have been a step too far for the movie studio to commit to this celluloid. Another great choice for the book club. Thank you, Graham. 100%. It gets very dark, the film. Very, very dark, the book, sorry, but none of that darkness is in the film, which I will get onto the film in a minute. Lauren Devaney Quigley says, I flew through Bedknobs and Broomsticks a few weeks ago and just adored it. I found it really engaging, exciting and hilarious. I bought it on Kindle and highlighted more than a few brilliant moments and one-liners, including, it's cheaper to spit in the bus. So many weird little lines like that, he announced. After some seconds of silence though, by licking the blanket, Aunt Beatrice, said Carrie politely, and thank you, Miss Price, for everything, even the cannibals. Miss Price is the witch, by the way. Such an enjoyable read, Hannah. Loved it and will read the Borrowers now too. Yes, so Mary Norton, her most famous book is Borrowers, which I will go into that as well. I feel like you felt very much the same as me. A lot of charm in the book. I loved the book. Next comment is from Chrissy N. Final thoughts on Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I really enjoyed it. Yes. It was quite different from the whole movie, a bit darker in tone but full of magic, whimsy and adventure. It reminded me a bit of a Narnia story in adventuring to other places through plain household furniture. Oh my god, yes! They go through the wardrobe in Narnia. I hadn't even thought of that. And in this they just use the bedknob. Great point, because I hadn't even thought of that. It made me nostalgic for make-believe adventures of my childhood. I read an illustrated edition of the book and it was beautiful. Great book club pick for July. Thank you, Hannah. I'm glad you liked it, Chrissy, but also great point, because I hadn't even thought about it's just a household object that's magical. Next up, I have K.L. Rimmer. Really enjoyed this book. As the film is so well known, I thought I would just be picturing that the whole read, but I didn't at all. It was like reading a different story. The characters in my head weren't the ones from the film. A nice, if sometimes gruesome read for children. Cannibals. I love how everyone's just mentioning the cannibals. I couldn't help but mention it when I was reviewing this book at the beginning of the video, because I was just like, what? And then a witch doctor that's going to kill the witch, Miss Price? It was just so mad. The whole thing, there's a bit where the children are put in prison. They are jailed and they don't know how they're going to get out. It's a bit where they try it and see their mum and they can't see her. She's not there. So they're in the street, in this bed, like, where's mum? It's just heartbreaking, but I thought it was absolutely fabulous. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the film. I love the film. The film came out in 1971. It's got Angela Lansbury on it, and it's got actors in it and then illustrations drawn over it. So really classic Disney illustrations drawn over the actors. It's very similar to Mary Poppins. And when I watched the film, I thought, this is incredibly similar to Mary Poppins. And that is because they were making both films kind of at the same time. So Walt Disney got the rights for Bedknobs and Broomsticks in the 60s, but it wasn't brought out until after his death in 1971. So he bought the rights to Bedknobs and Broomsticks, was going to make it, and then he was trying to get the rights for Mary Poppins. And if you know anything about the Mary Poppins film, you know that P.R. Travis' book, Mary Poppins, that series, is so different from the Disney version, and P.R. Travis hated what Walt Disney did to her book, because Julie Andrews is such a sickly sweet, lovely character, and within the book, Mary Poppins, she is vain, she is vicious, she is sinister, she is nothing like the film. So he had a lot of squabbling with P.R. Travis to get the movie rights, and then P.R. Travis wanted it to be written in that she could have some kind of creative control, which he said he could, but he completely was horrible to her, didn't give her any creative control, or it angers me so much as she hated the Mary Poppins film. But anyway, there is a lot of similarities, because when you read the book, when you read Bedknobs and Broomsticks, it's really sinister and the cannibals and everything like that. And then you watch the film and it's completely different. I don't know why they couldn't have taken a little bit of the idea of Bedknobs and Broomsticks but called it something else, because it's so different from the book. And if you're looking for what's in the film in the book, you're not going to find it at all. So he got the rights for Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and they were going to make it. He then really wanted to make Mary Poppins, really wanted to do it, and he was massively involved in the making of Mary Poppins. And Mary Poppins came out in 1964 and he died in 1966. So he got the rights for Mary Poppins and he was making Mary Poppins, but then there were problems with the rights. So he started making Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and then he had to keep putting that on hold. And then Mary Poppins came out before Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Even though he had the rights and had started working on Bedknobs and Broomsticks before Mary Poppins, he obviously just loved Mary Poppins and really wanted to do his vision, which was nothing to do with the book in my opinion, but he really wanted to go ahead with that. So Mary Poppins came out in 1964, huge hit. And then in 1971, Bedknobs and Broomstick came out, and a lot of the reviews said they were like great reviews for the film, and it did win awards, but people did say it's very similar to Mary Poppins. Very similar in the style, and Disney actually wanted Julie Andrews to be in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and of course she played Mary Poppins and she didn't want to be typecast into this sickly sweet role, so she said no. I think Angela Lansbury is amazing, and it's not a sickly sweet role really. If you watch Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I think Angela's great in it, but I do find it interesting that he wanted Julie Andrews in it. That was very similar. People say that Walt Disney was very disinterested with Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and the film did not come out until after he had died, and that when they were pitching the ideas for the songs of Bedknobs and Broomsticks, he actually fell asleep in the meeting. He didn't care. And also one of the films that was supposed to be in Mary Poppins, which were Under the Beautiful Briny Sea, that song was supposed to be in Mary Poppins, and it didn't fit into Mary Poppins, so they shoved it into Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So that again plays into the thing that it was almost like the leftover parts of Mary Poppins they put into Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks is amazing, but it's not the book. So it is kind of a leftover thing. They then cut loads out of Bedknobs and Broomsticks. They'd made too much and they cut it right down at the last minute. It was like the day before the premiere, they cut out loads of footage from the film and just started cutting around with it. Angela Lansbury, oh, I do so much research on this film because I found it so interesting, because Angela Lansbury said that it was very like acting by numbers is actually her direct quote. She said that everything was really scheduled down to your facial expressions, and they just wanted to do it really quick and get it done, and that was it. So it wasn't, I don't think, a great working environment. I think it was just something they needed to push out because they had the rights for it and they put so much work in it, but really they'd already had the success with Mary Poppins. A review from the time, which I loved, is a reviewer had said, Bedknobs and Broomsticks is Walt Disney's usual aggressive, friendly style, and it is. It's very much that aggressive, everything's okay, the peril has gone, happy ever after, done. Very aggressively friendly and everything's okay, where the book is nothing like that at all. The book is very similar to real life. That there's like terrible stuff in real life and that children should be exposed to that as well so they can cope with adult life. And Disney just completely strips films of everything like that. It did it with Mary Poppins, it's done it with Bedknobs and Broomsticks. But I still like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and I still like Mary Poppins. You know, there are moments, Mary Poppins, my favourite bit is when it's Feed the Birds. That's my favourite scene because it's quite a sad scene. And my favourite film in Bedknobs and Broomsticks is Portobello Road, because Portobello Road is in London. It's a road where loads of people have stalls and they sell different stuff, and it's got almost like a sadness to it, Portobello Road, that song. So I do love both films, it's just they're so different from the original material, and I feel like Bedknobs and Broomsticks was kind of a bit of an afterthought film. Mary Norton, her huge success has been The Borrowers. If you look at it now, Mary Norton has died now, but if you look at her success over her lifetime and after her death, it's The Borrowers. It's not Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Even though I love Bedknobs and Broomsticks, it's not. I think if you speak to children today and you say, oh, have you watched the film Bedknobs and Broomsticks? Most of them will say, what are you talking about? No, I don't know. But if you say, have you seen The Borrowers? It's been turned into so many films that they probably have. So The Borrowers has been turned into theatre plays. It's a whole book series. It's been turned into TV and films. And The Borrowers is a lot more successful. Also, Studio Ghibli did a film based around The Borrowers on Mary Norton's book The Borrowers. Studio Ghibli took it. So Borrowers has had worldwide success, whereas Bedknobs and Broomsticks hasn't. It's just been that one kind of Disney film that a lot of people, you know, it did win Best Animation like Disney normally does, but a lot of people say it's very similar to Mary Poppins. And I think it's sad because the book is nothing like the film. And so that's sad. Also, one more thing that Hannah Sleuth found out is there is no mention of Mary Norton talking about Bedknobs and Broomsticks anywhere. She never spoke about the film ever. I don't know why. I don't know if she liked the film or she didn't like the film. Like, P.L. Travers was really vocal that she did not like Mary Poppins. She did not think that that film represented her book. Mary Norton never spoke about the Disney film. So we don't know how she felt about it, if she liked it or not. We just know that The Borrowers is the greatest success of her life, and she wrote loads of books in the Borrowers series and she really loved that series. But we don't really know her opinion on Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I personally think the book is mental, but fabulous. It's the weirdest thing you'll ever read. It's the weirdest thing I've read this year. Like, it's full on mad in your face. And even the Bedknobs and Broomsticks film is mad, but it's mad in kind of a fun, happy, uplifting way. So those are my reviews of the film and the book. I like both. I obviously much prefer the book. It's so sinister. The cannibals, I mean, and then when one of them, he's like tied to a stake and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna die. And then they think he's been burnt to death. And they think he's been shot or something, and then they're all walking back to the bed to go home, and the girl's like, oh my god, I can't believe he's dead and we've just left him, it's dead, this is terrible. It's like, what? Like, it's just so, it's so good. So I would definitely recommend reading the book. It is fabulous. The film is also great, but the film just isn't a representation of the book. And this is the end of the video. I will leave it here. Tell me if you have read anything else by Mary Norton, and I will see you again soon for another video.